Hi, Sayerji here, and I am just so grateful that Elana, you've taken the time to um, really answer my call, which was I basically started to read your incredible book, Under an Ionized Sky. I was not familiar with it, and within a matter of a few pages, my mind was simply blown wide open. And, I am somebody who, likes to stay aware of the topic around chemtrails, which of course has been widely attributed to conspiracy theory and debunked. And yet in my own experience, indexing research for Greenman Info, I was pretty blown away to find that there is reference to some type of engineering, ostensibly for military use, et cetera. But it was just the surface that I scratched with that approach. And when I found your book and your work, it connected so many dots that I just was super compelled to reach out to you. And of course, you're in the middle of writing another book, which I would love to have you share with us today. But yeah, I'm sort of in a way a fan now that's a bit awestruck, and I just would love people that follow my work in Greenman Info to know about this incredible contribution you've already made. And then as I learn more about your work, I realize that you have connected so many dots that I'm just really excited about this opportunity. So please feel free to share with our viewership, maybe just a little bit about your background and how you came to this work. And then I'm excited to have you tell us whatever you want.
Great. Thank you so much, Sayer. And it's an honor for me to be with you as well. I admire your work greatly. And it's such a wonderful community, even though we never see each other in the flesh, so to speak, that we're all working with very similar goals to public education. So we're living in extraordinary times. And I know it's hard. These are hard times, but I am so excited that I have lived long enough, because remember, I'm a 60s person. And we used to talk about the establishment coming down, and our ideas as a young generation were pretty naive, but we had been through the Kennedy assassination. Yesterday was the 57th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination. We had been through Martin Luther King's assassination. We had been through Robert Kennedy. And then all of our rock stars started to be killed by the FBI and CIA and Operation COINTELPRO and Chaos. So I've been aware for many years of this globalist dream or nightmare that is now coming to pass. So I'm really thrilled, because it just appears that most people don't really wake up unless they have to. And I'm not like that. I was pretty wakeful from day one. And I'm very happy that people are awakening, because I can't imagine living on the earth during one's lifetime and not coming to terms with the time and place that one has chosen to incarnate. That is very hard for me to imagine, that you would you would just kind of sleep through your life. And yet materialism is, of course, very healthy in America, has been anyway. Things are changing now slowly, but the materialistic outlook would see it as, well, this is all there is anyway, might as well have a good time, try to alleviate my pain as much as possible, but not really be that responsible for much of anything. And that is a complete lie, a complete fabrication of materialist and the materialistic West. So I've been aware of this for many, many years. And so I just wanted to say that I'm up for this, even though it's scary, and there are, I certainly have no friends left because I think for myself. But years ago, I have always lived my life from, I would say, one mission to another. that seems to be my modus operandi. I was in a mission for Chinese medicine and macrobiotics when I was in my early 20s. I studied 6 years Chinese medicine and completely changed my American diet to an Asian type of diet through the studying with one of the greatest teachers I ever had, who was Michio Kushi in the macrobiotic empire. And I was one of the original students. I was the only female in the entire group, which he allowed. And I learned the theory first, and then I learned the cooking. And since then, that's been 50 years, about, maybe more. And gosh, I haven't been to a doctor or even taken an aspirin in well, since I was 13 years old. So I was raised by immigrants and farmers. I understood the value of food in the sense that we had everything was cooked naturally. I never saw a loaf of white bread until I was 8 or 9 years old. I didn't realize that everyone didn't eat as my family said and did. I feel so blessed that I had that upbringing. No television. So I read, I had to read early from my immigrant grandmother so I could read the letters from the government to make sure they weren't going to send her back to Ceausescu and Romania. So I really got a great start.
Well, if I could just say too, for those listening, it makes so much sense that you share this now, because when I started to read some of your book, the image of what you have uncovered is so terrifying on some level. I'm like, how does she hold it together? Because you're such a, just a positive, healthy energy. And here you go. You've been part of this movement before I was even born, so that's really beautiful.
Yes. And it was like that in the 60s. We're characterized by the CIA-run Time magazine and Newsweek magazine and all those as sex, drugs, and rock and roll generation. But the truth is we were political and we were spiritual seekers. And we had tremendous conversations and discussions, and it was intense, and we were experimenting with various lifestyles. We were back to the land. The Native Americans, I mean, we were just, as a generation, I can honestly say that the vanguard of it, of which I was a member, the vanguard was intensely positive and knowing we're here only for a short time. Let's really learn as much as we can, and we're all going to share what we learn together. And that's really what my Sub Rosa America books are about. And that's not the hat I'm going to wear today, but it was very much the research I did for Sub Rosa America to figure out what happened to America since John Kennedy's assassination that led me to having one tiny file on chemtrails. And I didn't know much of anything 10 or 12 years ago about it. I certainly saw things in the sky to a degree, but I didn't know what I was looking at. So, I've learned all these years a lot on my own and through the work of many, many others who have donated thousands of hours to trying to figure out this national security program that is hardly ever mentioned and is so powerfully working upon everything that you see today. And that's what I hope that I'll show you. So I began, did you want to say something, Sarah?
Oh, no, just that this is, this is exciting. Well, I will share this, is that, I ended up getting into the topic because of what my eyes were showing me. And yet, interestingly, in this day and age, you're considered crazy for even mentioning the fact that the weather has changed dramatically. And of course, there's all this dialectic around, climate change exists, it isn't. And what I love about the context that you're bringing into foreground is that, it is anthropogenic, but it's engineered and it's weaponized. And that's something that people, I think, will understand finally now that they know about your work.
Yes, yes. And thank you for bringing that up. When I started this particular mission, the mission of bringing geoengineering to public consciousness and what it really is, I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'd just gotten back from England. I'd been there a few years. I'd lived in Santa Fe before when I'd gotten a master's degree at St. John's College, a fabulous program. And I was invited to breakfast by a friend, and I met Clifford Carnicom. And Clifford was the first independent scientist who began to notice that in those blue azure skies of northern New Mexico, there were chemtrails. And he knew they weren't contrails. He knew what a contrail looked like. He knew how long a contrail lasts, which is about 30 seconds maximum. And he recognized a signature which was entirely chemical. So he began collecting all the condensation, detritus that was caught in his HEPA filter. He began to analyze everything with his what tools he had at his disposal. He used to work for the Department of Defense. He used to work for the Bureau of Land Management, but he had left these large organizations dissatisfied with the direction they were dragging everything. So he was on his own, and we began to talk about what he was finding. Now, I had a second major in college, biology. I hadn't touched it in all those years, except, when I was a Waldorf teacher, I would pull out my biology and sort of make some nice drawings on the board for the children so that they could understand some of the biological parallels between the animal kingdom and the human body. But now Clifford and I began to look through his microscope at what he was finding, and what he was finding were these fibers. And so I took what he called the red wine test at that time. It was just simply because of the color of the wine. You clean your mouth, clean your teeth as well as you could, and then slosh around a mouthful of wine for 5 minutes, spit it into a clean jar, and then see what's there. And what were there were fibers, sometimes with their own motility. So it was a very waking experience for me that I had these, whatever they were, in my body. And that's how I began. Then I was contacted by Adam Parfrey at Feral House. And Adam asked me if I thought I could write a book on chemtrails. Well, I just met Clifford, and it just seemed natural. So I started researching, and I wrote the first book. Came out in 2014, Chemtrails, HARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. And in that book, I studied pretty much Bernard Eastland's patents for the HARP installation in Gakona, Alaska. HARP stands for the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. I don't even remember now. And then that book gave birth to yet another book, because when the Chemtrails HARP book came out, I was on Coast to Coast and received a tremendous outpouring of 200 or 300 people after I came off of the show. And one of them was a man named Billy Hayes. And Billy Hayes is known as the HARP man, because Billy had worked for the CIA as a tower erector. And so he worked on the HARP installation up in Alaska and 240 other installations around the world.
And did you say that was, he worked for the CIA?
Yes, because the CIA was in charge of this program from the first moment. And this goes back to Ronald Reagan when he was president, George H.W. Bush was vice president, and Dick Cheney was Secretary of Defense. And they are the ones who brought forward the Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI. And the SDI is really what HARP kicked into high gear, is what happened. The SDI went black under Clinton, when Clinton became president. And yet it was worked on constantly. It was given out to the public that it was a ballistic missile defense program. That is not what it was at all. And so when I wrote the second book, born out of the previous book, it was about the coming to fruition of the SDI program. And HARP did that. HARP was definitely experimental, and it definitely was, its main purpose was to control the ionosphere around the Earth. You know, we live in the troposphere, and then there's the stratosphere, and then eventually you get to the ionosphere, and then above that you have the magnetosphere. That's basically the subtle bodies. If I could shift gears a little into the occult for a moment, those are the subtle bodies of the Earth. So recently I did a Rudolf Steiner presentation in which I pointed out that this is a complete, that this geoengineering is a complete assault on the etheric body of the Earth. And that means it's also an assault on our etheric body, since our etheric body and the Earth are completely interwoven through the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance is 7.83 in its natural state. Now the Schumann resonance is being manipulated constantly, and so it changes many degrees each time. So when I wrote the book you held up, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown, now I was really cooking, you might say, because Billy Hayes, the HARP man, had been guiding me toward looking at what else was going on, what all of the work in the original HARP experiments was about controlling the ionosphere. But why? What's the big deal about controlling the ionosphere and bringing that ionized energy down into the Earth atmosphere and basically electrifying our atmosphere? And that's what I meant by the title, Under an Ionized Sky. Our sky now is ionized. Clifford Carnicom had been saying for years that our entire atmosphere had been transformed, and that's past tense. It is not going to happen. It's not just happening now. It's been completely transformed. And so the question then, of course, was why? And as I described in the Under an Ionized Sky book, I try to paint a picture of how this machine-like transformation of the Earth, weaponizing it, is done. So you're looking at the towers, all the cell towers, looking at the geomagnetic current running through the Earth. You're looking at, you know, what's around us, and that's what that whole book is about, is to give you a very thorough idea of how the entire Earth atmosphere has been completely taken over. And that's above nations. That's beyond nations. Now, that gets into a can of worms, because as you can imagine, the US was in the lead after Russia was in the lead, back with some of the experiments we were finding it doing in the 70s. And now the US had pulled ahead. Now then Russia picked up speed too and caught up. And then now China is in on it. India is in on it. And meanwhile, to the public, always you hear about nuclear radiation. Really, that is not what's going on, other than, of course, the depleted uranium use in wars, et cetera. Terrible, terrible. But it isn't so much the ionized radiation now. It's the non-ionized radiation that is now something that we all need to look at.
Well, let me ask you then, for those who are listening, I think some of you out there have come to the point where you acknowledge that, weather has been weaponized between sovereign states, for example. It's, public documents now exist showing that. But I think that what you pointed out is really extremely topical, given we're all in this COVID 1984 situation where we see a global governance structure descend that preempts sovereign states' rights, and under the auspices of COVID-19, they can pretty much do whatever they want now using that narrative. But this layer is absolutely fascinating to me because we're talking about a coordination globally that many would have previously said is conspiracy. Now we see that they can architect and execute a global pandemic seamlessly. So now it's like, wow, your work is so much more believable to the average person. So yes, why have they ionized the sky is the question that comes up. And why is the CIA and HARP connected in this way? Is it because it's a psychogenic weapon as well? And questions like that.
Yes. And I would be so bold as to say that had they not been able to acquire this technology and fill in all the gaps, and that's what they've spent the last 20 years of geoengineering. It's not recent. It's been going on for over 20 years, this one program that had a variety of things that it wanted to accomplish. And at that, let me just bring up my little chart so we can start to look at that. Host disabled attendee.
Let me see, do I have to? Yes. Okay, let's see, share screen. Let's see, multiple participants can share. So you should be able to do it.
Do it now, okay.
Is that Project Cloverleaf? Is that what you're going to be sharing?
Well, this is Cloverleaf. Yeah, we can talk. That's how I talk about it in the book. That was the original name of it. Because of course, and people always say this, hey, they've been doing this since World War I. I have my publisher gave me a wonderful book about how they had been making these clouds in World War I, and there's a bunch of pictures. And yeah, I understand. They wanted to chemicalize the environment, but they didn't have the electromagnetic thing together yet. And in a way, that's why the SDI program, which we knew as Star Wars, they called it Star Wars, and they brought out the Star Wars series just as they were bringing it out. They always do that pre-programming with all the films for the public. Wow. So they put it away because they didn't have the technology yet to bring things to a point where they could actually ionize the entire atmosphere. Whether they were zapping the ionosphere or not and drawing down ions, they still needed more. And that was basically when they gave us, not just, we had the TV already, we had the computers, but now they gave us the cell phones. And slowly they were able to bring that curve up of the non-ionized energy in the atmosphere. And they needed that along with HARP. So it's all been very experimental for them as they're moving us forward. And they, contrived that cover story of climate change, carbons, had those conferences in 2015 that Mr. Trump very wisely pulled out of so that we wouldn't be pouring our money down the drain. This is the direction that we've gone in. You ask why the CIA was involved. Yes, it was because this is the way that they are controlling us. So even when you mention the COVID-19 delivery system, you have to look at this program. This is how they're going to do it. And in fact, let's forget this is how they do it. And let's go through the different things that that actually are going on. Can everybody see that then?
Yeah, it looks clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So really, this is from Clifford Carnicom. Clifford gave me basically this paradigm, this structure, this scaffolding upon which to hang all my studies regarding how extensive geoengineering really is, which again, remember, is a classified program. It is not non-classified.
Mm.
So first we have the weather engineering. And yes, now people are getting the hang. A lot of people know, oh, they're manipulating the weather. And of course, I'm always asked, is there any natural weather left? And I have to say, not to my knowledge. There is no natural weather to my knowledge.
Wow.
And I hear from people all over the world. We're not just talking in the United States. I mean, I'm in touch with, I don't know, hundreds, a few thousand people. And it's going on everywhere to some degree, certainly heavily in NATO countries, because in NATO countries, the American military and its geoengineers can really experiment. Because that's one of the things you have to sign off on when you become a NATO country, is that you will be available for experimentation of cutting edge weaponry. So first we have weather engineering, and the weather engineering is very important. Yes, we're talking tornadoes, storm systems, fires, like in California, I would include that under the weather engineering. Anything where they have to lay a lot of chemical trails a few days in advance. And that's essential, because just think about it. You can't run electromagnetic operations in a vacuum. So in order to run extensive weapons in the atmosphere, you're going to have to be able to possibly, you're going to have to be able to collect it. You're going to have to be able to control its vector. You're going to have to be able to run everything around it to some degree, so that you can target that one area, and that's really what weather engineering is all about, is working with the chemical trails, the particulates in the chemical trails, the nanoparticulates in the chemical trails, so that you have matter in the atmosphere. And you need that in order to ionize more and keep it going and building or diminishing, if that's what you're doing. And so they use laser systems, they use transmitters in radar installations. There are many things they use, but you've got to have the electromagnetic component along with a weather system that's pulled off of the South Pacific. That's where most of the weather is made.
Could I just ask you, one of the things that blew my mind about your book was that you pointed out that commercial aircraft have, by default, apparently, what is it, maybe 10% of the fuel contains things like aluminum and barium. Is that true? Then by default, the entire global aviation industry is dispersing a certain background level of these chemicals, and then on top of it, there's special programs to concentrate in areas, but that's what we're
right. You'd think that if it's a military program, which it is, that it would be military jets, but no, you're right. That's what Project Cloverleaf means. Project Cloverleaf is about inducting all of the major airlines into this distribution program. And so they have to sign non-disclosure agreements. If an airline refuses to cooperate, well, they're probably going to go out of business. So it was a very big deal, and we're talking 20 years ago, in order to bring all of this delivery system online, especially after HARP had done its job. It would close down in 2013 from the previous experiments, wherein they were able to at last control the ionosphere, absolutely control it, by the way. And so then they could really ramp it up. So that's only 7 years ago that it was terrifically ramped up. And if you paid attention to the weather that was going on here and there in whatever year you're in, whatever season you're in, and compare it with other years, you'll see that they had a schedule by which one year they're experimenting with earthquakes. Another year they're experimenting with tornadoes and storm fronts. I mean, it's very much about them finding a way to control these systems. And they do it through a type of science that Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden talks about. It's all scalar technology, and I don't want to go into that today. It's, you know, I'm still learning about it. And scalar waves are basically longitudinal waves whereby you can actually develop standing wave systems. And what that means is then if you have control over that standing wave system, you can move things in and out from a variety of like satellite you could have involved. There's of course the ionized element in the atmosphere already. You could have geomagnetic things going on in the earth. You could use tomographical rays going into the earth that stimulate the geomagnetics of the earth to add to the energy pool that you're going to now manipulate. Okay. So, you know, this must have been terribly exciting for the scientists who were all in this echelon, which had such power and such an extraordinary amount of money. Catherine Austin Fitts has referred many times to the I think it was $21 trillion that's missing from the American budget, and also posited, she was a big fan of mine, of that book that came out, that posited that a lot of it had gone into this program, because this is part of the secret space program. There's no question in my mind. And so them manipulating the weather all the way through, you know, the terrible Fukushima. I explained that very thoroughly, that was a HARP operation, no question about it. And they use this type of weaponry called interferometry, where they take a ray from one place and a ray from another place and maybe a third ray, and they all intersect over the target area.
And then 9/11 as well?
Yes, definitely. I think I start the book out with 9/11, don't I?
Yes.
Because yes, it certainly there were inside detonations that would have backed it up, but that was very much a directed energy weapon display, just as Judy Wood says in her great book, Where Did the Towers Go?, which every American should look at. I
was always trying to understand how thermite alone could create free fall speeds to the area of most resistance. Obviously, this other component would help explain.
Well, and the really scary part is the dustification that went on. The firemen wading through a very strange magnetic dust. That's what was left of those people's bodies. Wow. And of the destruction that went on there. So you're talking a whole other system of weaponry, and I think you can imagine that they don't really want people to know about it, right? Because it's very powerful, and it's particularly powerful if you don't know what it is.
Well, would this speak then to the reality of a, you know, transnational, you know, sort of like shadow group that, you know, would even be able to preempt nuclear, you know, conflict between nations, that they have technology that basically could even, yes, something like that, yeah.
Oh yes, these are the global elites. That's all I call them. Absolutely, they're in charge, and they, you know, there are secret brotherhoods, secret societies. Kennedy gave that great secret society speech just months before he was killed. And, you know, you go after the CIA, well, you've got a big problem. You go after secret societies, you've got a bigger problem, because I think the Earth has been run by secret societies for thousands of years. So yes, there is something overarching, and it's tempting for some people to blame aliens, or, as I call it, import from off planet. I don't really need to import from off planet. I might import a little bit from quantum physics, because there is something, if we get to the nano level, which I'm trying to, believe it or not, we are at the quantum threshold of life when we're talking about nanotechnology. And now we're into something very serious, which is partially off planet in the sense that it's probably from other dimensions, and has frequencies that are able to undermine ours. And so, now we're in an off-planet situation with that. But let me go ahead and we'll catch up with that. So the next thing, which is not really separate, as you can see, it's connected to, but it has its own objectives, is the chemical electromagnetic operations. Now you need chemical and electromagnetic in order to cause weather systems to become extreme, in order to park tornadoes or hurricanes offshore and park them for days at a time. That happened one year. So you need chemical and electromagnetic for any of the weather operations. The weather operations can also become an energy source, right? Through lightning and the thunderstorm. If you can get a lot of energy, you can ionize the atmosphere with some of that energy. So these things work together. The third one, planetary geophysical, that's where I would really include the California fires. And I have a chapter in the new book on the California fires, wherein I show how that works, and how it depends on nanotechnology, believe it or not.
Well,
So
some of those out there who don't know that there were images that appeared of, for example, metal cars just melting alongside vegetation that wasn't burnt, and so that's an example.
right.
Something
Well,
strange.
it was very similar to what Judy Wood pointed out in her book about how there were pieces of papers floating around. But everything else had been dustified. So what was with the paper? Well, its frequency was that of wood, and it was not subject to the frequency that had been dialed in for destruction. So
because, for those two out there, that everything's a waveform, if you will, what appears solid or hard. If you get the right frequency, you could cause it to alter or even disappear, right?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So planetary geophysical, then we go down to the fourth operation, which is the directed energy weapons. And here it's an interesting thing, because right away I start thinking of plasma weapons. I'm thinking of mostly beam weapons, which are being used in space as I speak. But really, now that the whole Earth has been weaponized, and even what is now living inside our bodies, which I'll get to, it's all been weaponized. So the directed energy weapon, which used to be called, believe it or not, non-lethal weapons years ago, an amazing hubris to call it that. And these are now very many, because once you know how to manipulate radio frequency and pulse, and you have means to pulse frequencies, you have directed energy weapons. You can weaponize the 60 hertz in your walls that's feeding your electric system for your lights and your stove and stuff. You can use it anywhere, and that's really what a lot of people who are being targeted with these weapons, we're hearing more and more about that. I know I must know 24 people who are being targeted with these weapons, with the weaponizing of their own homes.
Yeah, for those, would you agree that the smart meters can help to?
Oh, yes. Yeah, in a way, the smart meter is the gatekeeper. and they go through the gatekeeper to trigger the Internet of Things in the home, all the electric appliances, the different parts of, the 60 hertz in the walls, the cell phones, the TV, all of it it would go through the smart meter gatekeeper was their plan. As you know, many people are opting out. So what will happen then? Well, in a way, they'll do all right because people own cell phones. Now, I don't own a cell phone. I don't see any reason to own that weapon system, just as I don't own a television. I don't see any reason to own that weapon system either. So
I just want to say that's so powerful because people are worried about being microchipped and irradiated with small cell installations. And to call it a weapon system is such a very accurate description. So thank you. Yeah.
And it came from the military. I mean, what do you expect? They had all these technologies they gave us before we had them. They had them for at least 1 to 2 generations, so they could work out the kinks and get them to be what they call dual use. Dual use is a military term for something that can be used in civilian life and military life. Okay, so now we're on to the 5th operation, surveillance and neural. And this is what you were talking about with the CIA, mind control. Yes, this is very big now, and it's mainly the satellite system that is being utilized. And now we have Elon Musk sending up thousands more. And it is about 5G, these thousands more, and these little CubeSats that they use. But it's more directly, it's to really acquire control and access to the nervous systems of people. And they're going to be able to do that primarily because we have breathed in the nanotechnology that has been distributed by the chemical trails of the jets, drones, and rockets. And these nanobots, and that nanobot means nanorobot, it's a nano-sized. A nano is 1/1000th of a meter in size. It's at the atomic level because a nano is actually created by laying one atom next to another atom, next to another atom, etc. And nanotechnology is one of the biggest weapon systems that is secret. And we're talking secret in full daylight. It's in everything, right? It's in cosmetics, it's in foods. Certainly most processed, I'd say all processed foods have nanoparticles in them. Now there are natural nanoparticles. There always have been on the earth. Just means a size thing. But now they are being made and they are being constructed. They are a whole building philosophy, and they are behind the future transhumanism that our masters of the universe want all of us to submit to.
And for those, if I could add, just who think it's conspiracy, Alphabet, which owns Google, they also have a health extension. I think it's called Verity, and they're very open about how it's all about nanomedicine and creating these injectable, ingestible, nano dust-like entities. So anyway.
Yes, and it is. Well, I'll get to that, but we'll concentrate on the surveillance neural. So what they need in order to control, there's population control, and then there's maybe a regional control, and then there's maybe individual control. So all of these require a different approach, but what all of them need is the ionized atmosphere so that those electromagnetic operations can go forward. They also will probably need a certain amount of nanoparticles in the atmosphere continuously. That's why when people write me and say, "Oh, Elana, they stopped laying the chemtrails. We had clear skies today," and I'm like, well, maybe good for you. Enjoy it. But I very much doubt that because they haven't gotten the tech. Maybe someday they will get the technology to the point where they don't need to lay so many nanoparticles. I don't know. But by that point, it seems that we will have merged in some way with the nanoparticles on some quantum level whereby we don't even notice them anymore. So the surveillance is to me the least of our problems, though when I use the word surveillance, we're also talking about how these nanosensors that they're dropping by the trillions in the upper atmosphere come down, we breathe them in, they're in us, they're all reporting back to Computer Central about various things they're sensing in us, in our bodily movements, in our behaviors, in our moods, and whatever they have programmed these nanosensors to do. That's part of the surveillance as well. And that is of great concern because once again, it's on a nano scale. That's the scale that we need to really be concentrating on. That the fact that the eye in the sky, that's been there since the first round of George H.W. Bush. I don't even think of privacy anymore. I assume I have no privacy whatsoever. But the neural, now the word neural has come up a lot in the programming of the public by Elon Musk with his neural mesh. And he makes it sound like his neural mesh, and maybe his neural mesh will require a minor surgery. But basically speaking, the neural mesh I'm concerned about are the self-assembling, self-replicating nanotechnology that we're breathing from chemical trails. And those are straight in through the lungs to the blood system, and straight through the blood-brain barrier because they're so tiny, no problem. So those are the ones, the neural mesh I'm concerned about, that they are in there. They are remotely controlled. They are reporting to whatever laptop boy is responsible for this particular area or this particular algorithm or whatever. And that's the concern I have, is the nanoparticles.
If I could just insert, if you will, that for most people that haven't really gone down the rabbit hole, when they hear this, I think they want to believe that this is crazy because it's so paralyzing and so scary. And even myself, sometimes when I start to really think about the implications, especially having children, and it's really I'm just curious for yourself and for those who are listening, like how, I don't want to take it too far a tangent, but is there a way for us to mitigate and prevent this? Or is that maybe at the end we can talk about that?
Well, just think how people felt when the microscope was invented and they saw an entire world of tiny weirdos. And those tiny weirdos were often in our bodies. Just imagine how they felt. Wow. They felt similarly. And those were microbes that were naturally created by Mother Nature. Now we're entering another realm wherein the human being is involved in this. So let's take it to the end, and then we will talk about it, because that's pretty exciting in my mind, that we are facing a technology which is not only denied as existing, but is tremendously powerful on a physiological level. But we are not just physiological beings. Wow. I'll give you the preview on that.
To amplify the relevance to the listeners is that we have colleagues in Italy who did an assay of the vaccines on the market in Europe and found, that every single one of them had nanoparticles, metal type nanoparticles within them.
Always.
right? And they're already intentionally injecting these things into us. So your topic is highly relevant. So I'm sorry,
Yeah,
please.
no, it's fine. And
Yeah.
that's important to bring up because the vaccinations and the GMO foods are two other delivery systems, okay? Consciously made. It's not an accident. They, as you know, I mean, we had the clue years ago when Monsanto said that they had an aluminum resistant seed.
Mhm.
And they were dropping nano aluminum on us till the cows come home. And of course, you know, the Terminator seed was able to handle that because they were all on the same team and they were all headed where we are now. This is what the global village really means, what they're setting up now. So, you know, all right, so let's go to the next one. After surveillance neural, we're in the 6th operation of geoengineering, and that's digital biology, nanotechnology, transhumanism. I kind of stuffed them all together because they are very connected. So what digital biology means, and that's now we're getting to where I'm spending all my time, or at least a lot of time now in this 3rd book. And this is my last book. I want people to witness this. I am not going to write another geoengineering book. This is where I'm culminating with you know, the end of the symphony of this whole thing, of these 3 books. The title of this book is Geoengineered Transhumanism: How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetics, and Nanoparticles for Synthetic Biology. And that's what's going on. Molecular biology, the kind of biology I studied in undergrad many, many years ago, is really not that useful to me now because all the molecular biology is being digitized. And what that means a lot of things, but one of the things it means is, imagine that you want to send a COVID-19 somewhere, maybe to Wuhan or somewhere else. You don't need the virus. All you need is its signature that you can transmit electromagnetically. That's
Wow.
all you need.
Wow.
So that's the to me, that's the really scary news, is that this is the direction they're going in, where you hear stories of kids who are playing a lot of virtual reality games, and you hear about the SWS, what does that mean? SWS. I hate these acronyms because I end up not remembering what they mean. There's a system by which they are making a virtual reproduction of Elana. So there's Elana here in the flesh, and Elana doing various things, but because I have all the nanosensors in me and around me, everything's being monitored and fed to a deep learning supercomputer or quantum computer, and they are slowly making a digital representation of me, not just the physical me, but the whole package. And the idea being, and there have been, you know, some really cool science fiction novels about this, the idea being that eventually the VR representation of Elana, they can communicate directly with that, and that will run me.
Wow.
And I won't even know I'm being run by it.
Well, if I could just mention to listener, Netflix somehow released their Social Dilemma documentary that actually articulates this vision pretty clearly, which I was very surprised to see through a big tech platform like them. And then also Luc Montagnet's DNA teleportation experiment proved that absolutely an electromagnetic signal can transmit through space and time and then cause reassembly of DNA and other biologicals through really just, it seems almost like magic, but this is now happening through Nobel Prize winning scientists like him. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the digital biology and then the nanotechnology, I've already told you that we have breathed in or eaten or been vaccinated with a lot of nanotechnology, and that we can expect that nanotechnology will be in anything that we have if we go to hospitals and submit ourselves to doctors, and the medicines, all the big pharma medicines are all nanotech.
Mm.
Because this is a grand experiment of the, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, of the global elite to develop a slave class, but also to to become as gods on planet Earth, and to run humanity in a direction that is not the direction that the true Godhead had in mind, you might say. And so that's how it is. I don't see anything radical in thinking that unless I've been living under a rock for the last 50 years.
When did you
I know
come to
that.
realize this? I'm just curious because it's only come to people like myself in this window. But I imagine you saw this.
Well, I saw it many years ago, but not in this degree, not in this nanotechnology way. I didn't know anything about that, but I knew because of my study of MK Ultra. I spent 10 years studying MK Ultra in order to understand what the CIA had been doing from the end of World War II to supposedly they ended it in 1973, which of course they didn't. And now we have remote MK Ultra. We have what I call EMK Ultra, electronic, where programming can be done at a distance. And if they have your signature, the signature is a frequency. And so I knew where they were going, and I've been yelling and ranting and raving for years, as many people, and I was called a conspiracy theorist, and unfortunately, I've never been wrong about my so-called conspiracy theories, because I back things up with a tremendous amount of research and good thinking, thanks to Rudolf Steiner, who really taught me how to think. So let's finish this. And I'm determined to get through this list. I'm almost.
Yes. I have an infinite number of questions that I've been keeping to myself.
Okay.
But please continue.
Okay. So let's finish up the digital biology, nanotechnology. Okay, transhumanism. Some people don't know what that means. Transhumanism is an enhanced version, some would call it, of a human being. It is more honestly, it is a BCI, a brain-computer interface human being, where we're plugged in through our nervous system to AI programs, and we are run accordingly. And what they want to make sure of is that you don't really know you're being run because you're a happy camper. You hear this from Schmidt, or whatever his name is, from the global organization that's promulgating this thing, that we'll be happy.
Klaus Schwab.
Yeah, Schwab, that we will be happy, we won't own anything, but that's really great. And they'll own us. And we already know that that certainly is true, and has been, to my mind, been true for many years, that human beings are in a certain geographic area are partially why wars are fought, is to own those human beings who then will create more funds than they cost to keep, sort of thing. So it's just a sort of clever, now very technological way of doing what has always been done. but it seems to me that more of the inner circle elites are in on this, and that it's finally here. I think they've been working on this. Some would go way back to the Reformation or something like that. But for me, this has been going on since the failure of the League of Nations at the end of World War I. And that was the first throwing the hat in the ring to have like a United Nations, a one world governing body. And so it appears to me that what they did, because that failed, and then it just seemed that the UN got a pretty flaky start, and it seems that they decided, oh, we've got the technology now, let's do it through the environment. First, we'll take over the environmentalist movement, which they did, and then we'll make everything green, which they have, which is not green at all, and then we've got this fantastic technology, all the way down to the minuscule, by which we can plug everything into AI systems and run it all from laptops or fusion centers, anywhere. So it just, what is surprising, Sarah, is that they actually made the big move now.
Under the
I'm like, wow. I was like, I was like thrilled. I'm going to be alive for this. This is too good. Because I've known this is coming for 50 years.
Yes.
And okay, the final one, the seventh, cloaking and obscuration and detection of exotic propulsion craft. Let's do that one first. Yes, we have exotic propulsion craft. We have had it since we brought the Nazis over under Operation Paperclip. We have had it since Tesla. However you want to look at it, we've been working out the kinks. I'm sure there's things going on the moon. As to whether they can make the jump to light speed to Saturn or Jupiter, I don't know. I don't really pursue that line of inquiry, but I know we have exotic propulsion craft, and it is able to do extraordinary things far in advance of anything that most people know. And then the other part we have to put in, which is the cloaking, obscuration, detection of plasma life forms. They are creating their own plasma life forms. There's many, many plasma experiments going on in our atmosphere, in the troposphere. But there are others that Wilhelm Reich pointed us to, and Trevor Constable pointed us to. I used to email with Trevor before he died. He wrote the book, The Cosmic Pulse of Life, in which he has maybe 20 pages of black and white photos that he took with infrared film out on the desert of entities, beings. They're not from Alpha Centauri. They're simply, what they look like giant versions of what I used to look at through my microscope in biology in college. They look like microbes. And some of them have little eyes, and some of them have little mouths, and some of them have little hairy things around them. I mean, yes, if you look at an electromagnetic spectrum and you see that our little wedge is so tiny, we can't see beyond much of anything. We can't see all the way to the gamma rays. We can't see to the microwaves and the radio waves. So given that our perception, our beautiful five senses have that limitation, it is not mysterious to me that there are all sorts of entities probably in this room with me right now. I can't see them. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I can't see them, because then I can concentrate on some other things that I want to do. So those are the seven operations of geoengineering, far beyond just the weather.
That's amazing. Like I said, I have like 1,000 questions, but that's not useful to the exposition here. So, but I really do feel like one colleague of mine mentioned they listened to one of your interviews and you discussed how I believe that in some regions, let's say it's some part of the jungle in Costa Rica, there could be some type of almost like shield or ionic or chi shield. Is
Plasma
that
shield, yeah.
plasma shield? So I'm wondering. Of course, I know you probably have more to tell us before we can maybe talk a little bit about what we can do, because for whatever reason, I'm relatively immune to plunging into the darkness, and this is where I like to live as well. But I just know so many of my followers are like, oh my God, what do we do now? And this is crazy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'll just say about the plasma shield. Not difficult to make, really.
Mm.
I think there was a TV show called Under the Globe, no, Under the Shield, Under the something, that was on for a few years, that was probably pre-programming us for the idea of living under plasma umbrellas when things got hot and heavy in space wars or whatever that were coming into our atmosphere. I think that plasma, the fourth state of matter, is very, very important. And there are many, many plasma experiments going on in our atmosphere. And a lot of times when you see, maybe a cloud that looks like it, that bounces on the earth, it has that much substance in it that it's bouncing. Or you see a corkscrew of a cloud that sort of is traveling vertically through the atmosphere, whatever. All these things, these are all plasma. In fact, these clouds that you see in the sky, I'm looking up there now, I don't think there are any to speak of real moisture clouds anymore. I think they're mostly dry plasma clouds. And they can be made wet by bringing in a moisture system and, impregnating, maybe not with silver nitrate anymore, but in an electromagnetic way, impregnating a storm system with it or something like that. But generally speaking, most clouds now are made of plasma. Okay, so let's talk about how to live with this kind of information. I gave you the picture of how it might have been when the microscope was invented. We could even say the telescope, but I think the microscope was probably more shocking because that had to do with where we live. And I think the first thing people need to do is, and Americans are just horrible at this, is get accustomed to learning things without your emotions being front and center. It's not about whether you like something or you dislike something. It's about knowledge. Knowledge, real knowledge, is power. And you can translate it into power for use in a situation like we're in now, where we're confronted by a very new technology, a very large scale assault on humanity and nature, because they really want to do without nature. They are not a friend of nature. So we need to know our enemy and know how they think and what they've got going. Need to translate a lot of the paper. This is what I do. I translate a lot of the papers I read, a lot of the patents I read, into something I can understand. I don't dwell on the things that are too mathematical or too chemical formulaic. I concentrate on what is being said about the technology and how it works. And then I listen to others. I have several scientists who have left the fold of conventional science and are available to me to when I get stuck or when I want to run an idea by them. But basically, we're all in new ground. This is not like you can take courses on this if you get into Yale or Harvard. Not so. Now, there are science enclaves which the elite support, And the one that I would recommend people learn about, and the one I have learned about, are the Jasons. And the Jasons are the creme de la creme of bright, forward-looking, futuristic-looking scientists who are given the best of the best that they need to know, whereas our universities, often our science programs are completely controlled, and the best stuff is not even allowed there, because you must keep these tiers separate, has been the idea from the beginning. I see the wisdom in that for their sake. And if you're going to control an entire planet, you have to have a certain series of illusions. So, keep the Newtonian, Einsteinian science for as long as you can, given that they've moved completely into something other. They're not in that anymore. So these are things we need to come to terms with. I'm the worst person to come to for hand-holding, because I'm a warrior. I'm on the front lines to a certain degree regarding giving out public information. Fortunate for me, I think I would be dead now if I had a PhD. I opted to not get a PhD, and I'm very, very happy that I did that. I somehow knew that you were going to have to find things on your own and not go in to be programmed at yet another university and then have to deprogram yourself in order to be able to continue learning. So fortunate for me, I had that wisdom. Now, what is going on in this movement that I've been involved in now for 10 years, there are a lot of people who are experimenting on their own bodies. We see our bodies as test tubes, as beakers in a chemical lab, for one thing. I have the nanos in me. I've had an outbreak once, years ago, when Clifford and I were going to meet. And before I left, about a week or two before I was scheduled to go to his place, and we were going to work in his lab and look at a lot of specimens people had been sending of Morgellons, I had a big outbreak on my calves, on both my calves. And so when I went to Clifford's, we had to spend a lot of time, or we felt we had to spend a lot of time looking at what was going on with my legs. So we spent a lot of time looking at stuff that we scraped with a razor blade off of my legs so that we could see what was there. And there was some Morgellons, but it was definitely something else. And it appeared to be mostly crystals. And it appeared to be that it was sort of like turning my legs into an antenna. And then when I went back home, within 2 weeks, it overnight cleared up. And that's when I realized that probably I should consider the possibility that they were able to remotely trigger an outbreak in my legs and then make it go away by reprogramming the nanobots. So I've learned a lot through my own experience, and then I've been there to see other people's pictures. Many people send me pictures of Morgellons outbreaks. And Tony Pantalaresco is someone I know he knows about you, but you may not know about him. He's a Canadian herbalist with an impossible Italian name, Pantalaresco. And he has for 10 years now been, he had Morgellons quite bad. And so he started really digging into what could make himself better. And it has grown into a huge, where thousands of people come to Tony to get ideas on how to solve the problems they're seeing from the nanoscale technology. He also uses different herbs and different supplements, and he also uses magnetics. And I think if I were to guess, I would say that the future in order to control the nanopopulation in our bodies, which will be used as antennas for transmissions, I would say that it will be magnetics that will help us the most. And so we're all kind of experimenting now, and looking at not worrying so much about the chemtrails and making them go away, as really paying attention to the nanotechnology aspect of what we now have our hosts for. We've been hosts for bacteria, we've been hosts for parasites, all manner of things. But this may be the first time in history that we've been host for a man-made, genetically engineered entity that they're calling inorganic life form.
Well, also, I was going to ask you if you have an opinion, comment on this rollout of, obviously transhumanistic mRNA vaccines. They were looking at RNA and DNA vaccines, and they've never been done before. So obviously, it seems like it's your book and your work right now is super timely and helping
Super
people
timely.
understand, right?
Yeah, it was amazing when that happened. And I recognized it right away in Wuhan, whether or not those people fell because they were actors or it really was oxygen depletion or whatever. I immediately intuited, yes, the 5G. And I then checked to make sure that Wuhan actually had done a 5G, and it turned out they'd done it in spades. They'd done super 5G, and what we saw was the transmission of a particular something or other. Now they say it's a coronavirus. There are over 100 types of coronavirus. Was it a weaponized one? Well, maybe, because in order to patent a natural creation, they have to do something to it. They have to tweak it somehow. And it's possible that that's what happened. I don't know. We're dependent on news sources that lie all the time. So obviously, though, it has worked for whatever they had in mind for world power. But I would say that the biological, if you can see the future, you'll realize that, yeah, I think they're going to use the digital biology model as long as they can. What would destroy that? Well, if there's a tear in the web of the of this space fence lockdown, this huge control over planet Earth in the atmosphere, well, I would imagine that it would be it could be a real problem. But I'm not concentrating on that now. The saboteur part of me is not thinking along those lines. I'm really looking at the idea that these nanobots, I alluded to it before, let me be clearer, because they're so tiny and they're basically subatomic, they are right on the threshold of quantum dimensions. And I'll go with whoever said that if you don't think quantum physics is weird, you obviously don't understand it. I think that just like CERN, when I cover CERN in that book you're reading now, I call it the Temple of CERN. CERN is about contacting that quantum dimension or quantum dimensions, and so are the nanobots. The nanobots they are not individual by any means. They have to work together in what is called a swarm. And that swarm has a consciousness, very much so. It isn't just from the laptop boys in Colorado Springs who are programming it. it has its own consciousness as it moves through our body. So I'm assuming, okay, so it's on the threshold of the quantum dimensions. When I think, my brain doesn't produce that thought. My brain is the diving board. I'm the diver, and my dive is my thought.
Mm.
So what is creating my thought is that part of me lives in those quantum dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a resident as a spiritual being of those quantum dimensions that I am from, that I have made a home in through my own thinking and endeavors in this life. So I am superior as a conscious being to the nanobots who can only think collectively and be programmed from abroad. So this is the trail I'm following now, is to look into, we have never used our consciousness truly responsibly, other than individuals here and there who have, of course. But imagine that you could actually take hold of your consciousness and run those nanobots as a superior being, superior even to the ones in Colorado Springs. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking now, Sarah. And as far as my experiments in that, I do run my own experiments when I have a small outbreak. And I have one now in my left ankle. And years ago, I encountered a targeted individual, wonderful woman. I think she's dead now, killed. And she told me once, she said, remember, your feet are connected to the geomagnetic field. And one of your feet is the positive anode, the other is the negative. And so when one foot is activated in a certain way, the other foot is the compensation for that. So I've been thinking about that regarding how my left foot is now, I would say, too positive, and the earth being negative. And the nanos are all collecting there and have made some sort of city in there, and therefore puff up my ankle, right? But not like elephantiasis or anything, but they are in there, and I'm like in touch with them. So I pay attention to my diet, and I pay attention to them. And I guess that's how I do things. I'm one of those people that sees the glass as half full, not half empty. I've always been that way. And so I'm excited to be doing this research into this technology that is certainly omnipresent now.
Well, maybe for those too that, may not naturally relate to this level of conversation, because I find it absolutely compelling, is that one way that I've come to a similar realization, I believe, is that, the whole agenda you're describing in exquisite detail is predicated on us identifying with, our, if you will, neocortex, sort of like hyper-reflexive mind, and the heart itself, maybe as we develop it, because it's an organ that, needs to be exercised and stretched and has all these dimensions that we haven't accessed. I don't think that system can co-opt the human heart as it develops, right? As a warrior, as someone who is dedicated to service. And that's what I'm placing my bet, is that as I develop as a being, that we can continue to explore these spaces and reveal the darkness, but then stay, safe, knowing that this cannot be co-opted, right? Our hearts. And if we connect like we're doing, this agenda maybe will not, come to pass, I'm hoping.
Well, it's simply that the human being, is precious, very precious. This is not a higher ape. That is not what we are.
Mm.
And this, that's why I work so hard, is I see now their end game
Mm.
is to replace us
Mm.
with a cyborg. And I refuse. I want people to be able to still come to planet Earth and have whatever life experiences they have in order to further their development of true free will. Because a lot of people think, oh, we have free will. No, you don't. Very few people have real free will. I've met maybe 3 in my whole life who really can command themselves. And as I used to say to high school students when I was a high school teacher, I'd walk by their desks, sophomores, perfect year, 15-year-old, 16-year-old. And I'd say, all right, I'm going to tell you the secret of life now. And this is the one that you need in order to be a success as a human being, as a person. You ready? You listening? Okay. All you need to do is one thing: to be able to tell yourself what to do, and you do it. Or to tell yourself not to do something, and you don't do it.
Wow.
To command yourself,
Mm.
then everything will open before you. Now, is that true or not?
Amen. I mean, in this window, I keep getting govern thyself, that's part of what we're seeing, is that if we are dependent in any way on this system, our cell phones, Amazon, we don't master our life. And so that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and it's the humanity. Keep that in mind. It's not just one's personal safety that's at stake here.
Mm.
This is the human future. They
Mm.
want to be as gods on this slave planet. And I say, no, that is not what I want. So I will do the best I can, do my job, and support others who are doing similar work.
Amen. I mean, I'm so excited that we were able to have this conversation, because when I saw your work, first of all, I'm like, I need to get everyone that I know to get your book and know about you, because part of my strategy early on was that if the more people that know about me, this work, the less likely I disappear and no one notices, And I know we live in a world now where there's less deletion of people, there's more of disappearance other ways. But I want people to know about your work, support you. Let's all get excited for your new book that's coming out. I'd love to get that out as far and wide as possible. And how can people stay in touch with you and support you?
I have a site called elanafreeland.com run by my webmistress, and there is a PayPal button, which I'm always grateful. Someone sent me $100 last week, and I was so grateful to him. And I don't have any Patreon site. I need to stay a free agent for a while longer so I can finish this book. And you can buy my books through Evil Amazon, or you can go through the publisher. I had a publisher for those 2 books at Feral House. I'm now on my own for the 3rd book, and I'll be designing the cover and everything. I'm excited. And otherwise, yeah, you can find probably several hundred videos of me on the internet talking about this over the years. Yeah.
Wonderful, Lana. Well, you're not alone, because when the book comes out, I'll be spreading it far and wide. And, I thank you so much for your work, your time, your energy. And I'd love to have another conversation. Maybe after the book is out, we can go and just, make a big deal out of it.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, it's been great. And everyone, check the show notes out. Please stay in touch with her incredible work, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Let's see. Oops.
Yeah, I hope you don't